Hi and welcome to Whiskey Shared. You're watching my review of Cotswolds Reserve. I'm Toby and you're watching Whiskey Shared. Welcome to my review of Cotswolds Reserve Single Malt. This whiskey is an English whiskey and comes from the Cotswolds Distillery. This particular whiskey is the big brother, I suppose, of the one I featured last week, which is the Cotswolds Signature Single Malt. Basically, this is very similar. It uses the same barley, the same yeast strains. It even uses the same cask types, both ex-bourbon and shaved, toasted and recharred ex-red wine casks. The makeup's a little different. It's 80% for the bourbon and 20% for the red wine. And it's 50% ABV as opposed to 46% ABV. It retails for around £55 and is non-chill filtered and natural colour. This particular batch is one of 5,000 bottles, so it's a slightly smaller run than the Signature Single Malt. Shall we find out what it tastes like? On to the whiskey. So let's have a quick look at the colour before I start nosing. I'd say that's like a pale gold. Let's start with the nose. Right, so the first thing I get with this is like fresh orchard fruits, like green apples. I'm getting some hay, like meadow grass. Getting some vanilla. I'm also getting like apple strudel, and with that the sort of the baked apple and the cinnamon and the raisins really is quite nice on the nose. Let's move on to the palate. First thing I noticed with this is heat. Definitely is noticeable heat on the palate. There's some biscuit as the heat starts to dissipate. There is a little bit of jamminess, but it's mostly fresh fruit like green apples, strawberries. It really is quite a bright spirit. I'd say the underlying new make is really quite noticeable on this particular dram, and yeah, it's very, very nice indeed. I got to try the white pheasant new make at the distillery, and really you can tell the character, and it's always good to be able to try a new make of a whiskey so you can try and identify that character on young whiskies. Let's have another sip. Yeah, so this is quite sort of creamy on the palate. It's also quite malty. You're getting that sort of malty cereal character, then a little bit of pepper, and that tingles the palate really quite nicely. Also get some like citrus, like orange zest, and I'd say there's some barrel char. That's probably coming from the STR casks. And there's also a hint of pear drops, which is obviously a slightly synthetic note, but it's still quite pleasant. In terms of finish, I'd say the finish is quite long with this. It does sit on the tongue for quite a while. There's a little heat, there's some spiciness. It's a little zingy, and with that there's some charred oak. There's some fresh berries, and there is that apple which I picked up on the palate. In terms of value for money, well, I got this as part of my Somerton Club subscription, which I pay £50 every 2 months for, and it retails for around the £55 mark. So it's there or thereabouts. Obviously this is supposed to be almost like one up from the standard single malt, and I think this gives away more of the new make character and the underlying freshness which the distillate sort of, you know, gives away. So I think this is probably a better example of what the spirit can be without hiding it too much in flavoured casks like red wine. In terms of value for money, I'd say around the £50 mark. This is quite good. It's 50% ABV, so it does have a little bit of a kick. You can add a splash of water to this and it still does retain, you know, its character, but it does sort of take the heat down a smidge. If you haven't seen my distillery video from my visit to the Cotswolds, then I'll put a link in the description so you can check that out, and hopefully you'll be back next week for the next in the Cotswolds series. Stauncher.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, why not give it a like or a comment, and please consider subscribing for more videos like this.